Well, I'm delighted today to be speaking to Sally Tennant, who's the founder of Acorn Capital Advisors. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So really excited to be working with you on our first event in Riyadh, our first event in the Saudi market. But it'd be great to hear a little bit more about Acorn Capital Advisors and your interest in this exciting Saudi marketplace.
With pleasure. So my history with Saudi goes back a long way. At the beginning of my career, I used to actually manage a European portfolio for the Saudi Arabian Monetary Agency. So I have known people from Saudi Arabia over a number of years. And I've been very blessed with being able to work with a number of families out there. One as a trustee on a foundation, the second as an independent advisor and member of their investment committee. And so to me, I'm super excited to see the developments that are happening, particularly the opening up of the economy and the opening up for women.
And you've visited the country many times before, I imagine, on these trips, or what's your experience of going to the country?
At the beginning of my career, I wasn't allowed to travel to Saudi Arabia. Being female and at the time unmarried, that was a no-no. I used to meet my clients in New York and in London. But over the past few years, I have been going out to Saudi Arabia once or twice a year, and I am amazed at the developments and the growth and the opening up.
Things are changing so quickly in the country, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So for our event in November, I mean, who are you hoping to engage on the ground? We're going to do some discussion events. We'll have a lovely networking dinner. What are the people you want to try and meet and discuss with?
The people that we're hoping to talk to, and I'm hoping to talk to, are the first generation who are thinking about succession and how they need to hand over. And also they're looking to see what they can do to increase the professionalisation of their family offices. So that's one segment. The other is the next generation. And it's really interesting and exciting to see that they, who've been educated, many of them internationally, want to take more risk, be more international, and do things a little bit differently from the first generation. And I think what's really interesting is how to make sure that both sides are comfortable, one in handing over and the other in taking over.
And because family dynamics are changing now, as you say, sons and daughters are educated overseas. I mean, I know that working with strong females who know what they want in terms of wealth management and services is an area of passion and interest for you. I mean, perhaps tell us a little bit more about how you see that in Saudi.
Yes, well, I think it's particularly interesting in Saudi because when you think about succession planning, it's much harder for a parent and a father in most cases to hand over a business to a woman when they hand over their wealth, but much easier an investment portfolio. And the challenge is to ensure that women who are well educated in having done their degrees abroad are also as well educated when it comes to financial affairs and not overwhelmed by the responsibility and able to see what good looks like, what good investment is, and to be super confident with that responsibility.
And I suppose that's educating and understanding on the different asset classes that might compose a portfolio, the building blocks, if you like. The
building blocks.
You know, it's so important to get that right, particularly looking at more complex areas, alternatives, hedge funds, private equity. You can get bamboozled, can't you? So to have sound counsel on that is so important.
Sound counsel is really important. And just even before you decide on the asset classes, just helping somebody think through what the purpose is of that pot of money. You know, how much is it to stay rich? How much of it is to get richer? And how much of it is to enjoy or give away? And those, you know, when you're handed a pot of money, it is assumed that you want to do the same as in the past. But that's not always the case. The needs change over generations, and it's helping somebody make those decisions.
Do you think London as well still has a great position in terms of giving this global picture, this global financial advice? Many Saudi families have a lot of familiarity with London. They come here, they visit. But in terms of their investment and independent investment advice, do you think London still has that number one spot, or certainly up there?
It's certainly up there.
Yeah.
I think the years of experience is very valuable to Saudi families. You know, it is predominantly first, second generation wealth there, and therefore being able to connect with families and advisors to families who've seen this transition before, who've understood the complexities, not just of investments, but the human dynamics, I think is very valuable. And they love London, and they love real estate in London too.
And do you often find yourself working with other professionals like trustees or lawyers, perhaps looking at this governance piece, and then on the investment piece, looking at a different way to do things? And I suppose an overall strategic review helps you look at things afresh. You know?
Yes, and that was a key rationale for setting up Acorn, in that my colleagues and I identified that there was a gap in the market for people who were experienced practitioners who'd done this stuff. They'd run money, they'd built a family office, they sat on investment committees, run a business, but also people who were unconflicted with that, but understood the big picture. So we're enormously collegial. We work with accountants, lawyers, all sorts of advisors who tend to specialize in one narrow area. Our value add is we see the big picture and we can connect the two together, and that's obviously very important for clients.
And so for family offices on the ground in Saudi, they might be more involved in the family business or the real estate portfolio, and you can neatly fit in with them looking at strategic advice around the investments.
And the strategic advice around how much capital should you have in your business versus your investments. You know, most people talk about the asset allocation in an investment portfolio, but this is a big picture. It's the capital allocation between the two, which we help them think about, and the risks associated with that, which are quite different from just an investment portfolio.
And for the family business, it's making that leap between being a family business to a business family, deciding perhaps when to sell down, perhaps part of the traditional businesses that have created wealth, and look in a more rational fashion.
Yes, and looking in a rational fashion over a long period of time, yes.
And we're both incredibly excited about the prospects for growth in Saudi. That's partly why we're bringing this event and bringing sponsors to the table. But what's your view over coming years as to how things might develop there? I mean, you mentioned increasing demand for professional advice from families in the region. I mean, what's your observation?
I think that the growth and the vision of MBS to have Saudi Arabia less oil dependent, to be diversified and to build a more sustainable economy will continue. What does that mean? I think at the end of the day, you'll have a more vibrant local stock market. You will have more foreign companies coming there. But I think, like most people, international diversification will always be on the agenda, and therefore advice on all asset classes as the world becomes more complex will be needed. I think the other really interesting thing that's going on that families need help on in Saudi is that they have a wonderful sense of family. Family unity, family businesses, and want their family to be involved. And I think, therefore, it's sometimes hard for families to recognise that maybe their children aren't the right people to be in that business, and having somebody help them independently work that out is also very helpful. In addition, in that part of the world, advisors, because of the culture there, find it quite hard to give news that the head of a family doesn't want to hear. Actually, that is also a global thing. But one of the most valuable things that our clients like is that we are quite comfortable and happy to hold up the mirror and say,
as seasoned and experienced advisors, you know, it's very different if you're a younger relationship manager coming through a bank only wanting to present the positive story.
Exactly. And sometimes you need that trusted advisor to say maybe not a good idea, but to do it in a loving, caring way, and to help people guide through the fact that they are often surrounded by yes people who find it quite hard.
And how can you build that trust, do you think? I mean, it is obviously a lot about seeing people face-to-face commitment, isn't it? But what's your experience do you think helps you put those pillars in place?
I think it's not just traveling and seeing people. I think it's being true to your word. I think it's delivering. If you say you're going to do something, it's like how trust is built anywhere. It takes time. And I think what is so nice about working with families in Saudi is that they're so family orientated. They're interested in you and your family as one is in theirs. And that's, I think, once you're embraced by the family, you know that you're trusted.
I mean, my small experience of going over there a few times and meetings with professionals was people were extremely generous with their time. You know, it didn't work in the same way of scheduling loads of appointments that you might do if you go to the Channel Islands or somewhere else here. But once people were actually ready to meet, they were so welcoming and gracious, and it was just been a really positive experience to meet people.
I mean, so hospitable.
Yeah. And
we had one marvellous meeting when we were having a family investment company and investment committee meeting, and we were out near the desert, and suddenly the CEO said, "Oh, it's about to be sunset. I think we should all go and see the sunset in the desert on the dunes." And we all jumped into these jeeps and went round the dunes to see the sunset. And I just thought, how marvellous. I've never been to an investment committee meeting where we've stopped to do that.
A shared experience there is important, isn't it, in terms of building? But I mean, I think we've touched on it really, but I mean, the independence is key, isn't it? Because, and we've talked before, previously about investments that families make in areas such as private equity or areas that can be opaque, and the difference between getting it wrong and getting it right have a huge impact on returns. And this is where this is the value of independent investments, isn't it? Is to call what you see and to be able to be free to say what you think will work.
And to point out the downside as well as the upside. Families sometimes forget, in family offices sometimes forget in their excitement to make direct investments, how time-consuming it is if they go wrong. Because you need not only to help the management sort it out. If you've got a large stake, you've got to put more money in, and then you've got to be aligned with the other shareholders, and that can be very time-consuming.
So in terms of the services that you do provide, it'd be interesting just to hear a little bit, break some of those down for us, perhaps.
Yes, with pleasure. We act as independent advisors for families and family offices with regards to investment advisory, philanthropic advisory, and succession planning. What we also do for those who don't have the bandwidth or are far too busy, we are the outsourced private office for the professional side of a single family office.
Because the level of entry point for a family office there's a lot of discussion and debate, isn't it, about at what point you need one, isn't there? So I suppose you can fill a sweet spot there where, as you say, someone's busy building wealth.
Thank you for raising that, because part of our advisory service is helping people set up their family office or actually go and help them when things have gone wrong. So we've actually worked in the Kingdom with a wonderful family office, but it had been going for 30 years and, shall we say, was not at best practice. And there was a succession issue internally. And we went to work with them to help them go from good to great. So we help people at the beginning of their journey when they want to establish one to find out what is the break-even point, where does it make sense, and what should you have in-house, what should you outsource, and how many assets do you need to really make it pay. And for those who either don't have enough money, but also don't want to run another business. A lot of people forget that a family office is yet another business. With all those issues, you still need a strategy, you still need to employ people, and you need to manage them. And some people don't want that, so they will outsource it to us.
And tremendous wealth is being created in the Kingdom. So these challenges of, I've actually got the means, but I haven't got the governance, I haven't got the apparatus around me, is a live issue there, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
Sort of,
And particularly now that you've got family charters, in Saudi is now allowed by company law to be part of the Articles of Association. So that will formalise and help all around governance and succession.
And what about on the philanthropic side? Have you noticed any trends from Saudi or the GCC in general around how families want to give philanthropically or as part of legacy?
A part of the interest in and the charm in Saudi is a very philanthropic country. And what we've seen through COVID and with the increased wealth is a wish to give more, but a wish to be impactful in that giving, and to measure exactly the difference that they're going to make with their money. So basically professionalizing the philanthropic side of what they're doing.
And does impact come through into the way they're investing as well, more broadly, or where are we at?
At the moment, it's more in conversation and looking towards that. We've seen very few who have put impact across all asset classes, but that's the way it's going.
Well, lovely to talk to you today, Sally, and we look forward to sharing this interview and seeing you in Riyadh in November.
I do too. Thank you very much, David.
The latest technical content delivered through global conversations with professionals for professionals.